Good evening, families. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you haven't done so already, please can you sign in and use the chat by typing in your name and the name of your child and the school which they attend. And we're going to get started right now. So thank you for joining us today. This is part of our Building Resilient Kids series, and tonight we are focusing on managing emotions. And I think it's safe to say that in this day and age and the situation that we're in, it's a very, very important topic. So we're going to be going through quite a bit of information about the brain, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. You'll get all this information through the book that you'll receive at the end of the night. But we will also be having a question and answer session towards the end with one of our counsellors. I'm Jyoti, and I'm one of the parent liaisons in the parent team. We've got the whole team here tonight, but I'm just going to introduce you to a couple of people that will help to facilitate this evening. So at first we have Alejandra.
Good evening, families. My name is Alejandra, and I will be the chat monitor tonight. Please feel free to send us questions and comments, and we will be answering at the end of the session.
Thank you, Alejandra. And then we have Anne.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Anne Grisham, and I am on the parent team. So happy you're here with us tonight. And I have the honor of introducing our very special guest. She's a counselor within the Round Rock ISD, has done both middle and elementary schools. April Travis, we're glad you can be here too.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Anne and April. So we're going to start this evening a little bit different to what you've probably seen in some of our sessions if you're regulars. We're going to start with a very short video clip with our very own Charlie's, our team mascot, I think, and that's sure to make you smile. So what we want you to do when you're watching this video, keep it in the back of your mind throughout the session, and it'll help you think about what we're going to be talking about, the concept of flipping your lid. So this video itself is about the brain and emotions, and we really want you to encourage you to think about what the bubbles of the fizzy soda bottle represent and how easy it is to let our emotions bubble. Oh my gosh, he's so adorable, isn't he? He's so cute. So again, think about that video throughout the rest of the session and what those bubbles represent in terms of our emotions. And again, if you have any questions at all, please put them into the chat box and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. So today we're just going to go over a couple of our goals. That's what we're going to start with. And the first one is learn how brain science connects to managing emotions. That might sound a little bit overwhelming, but we're just going to go through a little bit of information. And the second one is explore strategies that can help you as parents at home to manage your kids' emotions. So we're going to start off with the basics of the brain. So if we move into the next slide, you'll soon see that there's a picture of a brain. And if you look at the bottom, we've got the brain stem, and that is the tube looking thing, as you can see, at the bottom of the picture. And this is the part that keeps you alive. And then you see the blue part, which is called the amygdala. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's called the amygdala. And that represents your emotions and your survival instinct. And at the top or at the front, you'll see the dark brown part, which is a prefrontal cortex. That is also a mouthful. And that is responsible for your decision making. Now, this may seem a little bit overwhelming, but be sure that we will be running through this a little bit more later. So you've got the brain stem at the bottom, that's a tube, the amygdala, which is the blue part, and then you've got the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front. So there's so much to learn about the brain. We're not going to get through all of it tonight. We're not even going to touch a little bit of it. We're just going to talk about some of the things that will help you to understand your child's emotion. So part of your brain, it has the upstairs and downstairs, as you can see from this diagram. And if you imagine it like two levels of a house. So you've got the downstairs, and that focuses on the basics like the breathing and what helps you make certain decisions. So you've got things like what the scientists refer to as the primitive brain. So that kind of looks at the breathing, the blinking, and reactions like the fight, flight, and freeze. So an example like that could be when you touch something hot, your instant reaction is to pull away from it, and that's your downstairs brain working. And then you have your upstairs brain, which is very different. It's more evolved. And as you can see from that diagram, it really talks about the playing and the emotion side of things. And the purpose of the stairs is really about where we come in as parents. We want to try and keep our kids connected. So we want the downstairs and the upstairs brain to be connected as a whole. And the way we can do that is to give our children some guidance and some strategies. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more later on. So what you'll see in just a moment is the book that you'll be receiving. So this is called The Whole Brain Child. This is the national book, and we've done it, I've actually done this as part of a book study a couple of times within the parent team. And this is a great book, and what we will be talking about is the concept of flipping your lid, and this is where the concept comes from. So be sure towards the end of the evening that you fill in the survey with your address, and we will be mailing that book out to you. And it works wonders, so please continue to the end of the night. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to think of the brain. We've just spoken about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. I really want you to think of your hand as the brain. So we're going to be using the hand as an example. So this is going to represent your brain. So work with me here, just give it a wiggle, and we'll get through this. So what happens when your child experiences a big emotion? What we call it is flipping your lid. So you can see the hand representation there. So if you think about the fingers, the top of the brain here, as the prefrontal cortex. And then you've got the hippocampus. It looks like it's pointing to the thumb, but it's actually pointing to the palm of your hand. So the hippocampus here is your memory part. So this creates new memories, and it also saves the old memories. So this bit here, the prefrontal cortex, is about making wise decisions. The hippocampus here in the middle, the palm, is the memory saving part. Then you've got the thumb, which is the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is the part which helps us to react. So it keeps us safe. So on this diagram, it's the thumb here, and it kind of tells you to do one of three things. So you either fight, flight, or freeze. And those are the responses that we have as adults and as our children have as well. And they are natural responses. So when your child is well adjusted and making good decisions and choices, you'll see that their fist is like this. So that the amygdala, which is the thumb, is tucked underneath the memory, and then you've got the decision making kind of encasing it. So it's all connected really, really well. And this is when your child will be making good choices and good responses. And that's because they're all connected. So if you think about this, the soda bottle video you just saw earlier, that's pretty much when the lid is closed. However, if we move on to the next slide, what you'll see is when we as adults, as well as children, we flip our lid. And that is when we get reactions like screaming, shouting, hitting, shutting down. And this suggests that they're disconnected, which they are, because when the lid is flipped, the amygdala is free, the memory is free, and the wise decision making is actually popped open. So we're not making wise decisions. And it might not happen straight away. It could be a sequence of events throughout the day. Us as adults, as well as children, experience different things. It could be waking up late. It could be that we're hungry. It could be that, I don't know, we might have stubbed our toe. I mean, it could just be as minor as that. So it all is a sequence, and it all bubbles up like the bubbles in the soda bottle. So when we flip our lid, it's really exploding. It's those bubbles, and the lid is releasing, and it kind of, that's when we flip our lid. And I hope this is all making sense. And if it doesn't, and you're a little bit thinking this is a bit of too much information, this is all in the book as well. So please be mindful and be reassured that you'll get this within the book as well. So when you flip your lid, you, like, as I said, there are three things you will either fight, flight, and freeze. So the fighting is, like we've said, about shouting, hitting, yelling, those kind of things. And the flight is when a child or ourselves, we might run away, literally run away, or we may escape, or we could remove ourselves from the situation. For example, if you're a teenager, you may want to just go to your room and shut the door or something. And freeze is really when we shut down. So that's when we emotionally shut down, we don't respond. And what I really want to make clear is we're all different as adults and as children, so our responses would be very different too. So when we have a child, we may have one child, I've got three of them, so I have one that's very likes to do the yelling and the shouting, and then I've got one that just shuts down and cries. So just be mindful that our children are different, they respond in different ways to different things, and we as adults also need to respond differently to our children as well. So on that note, I am going to hand it over to Anne, who's going to give you a bit more information with our counsellor. But thank you so much this evening.
Thank you, Jyoti. I love the analogy of the hand. It's just, it really brings it to life. And now we're going to bring it to life even more. Tonight, we're joined by Round Rock ISD counselor April Travis. Now, April has her master's in education and school counseling. So April, let's just start basically when a child flips their lid, those are some big emotions coming out. What can parents do?
Well, Anne, I think that that's a good question. I think, first of all, for the parent is to stay calm, because if we add our big emotions on top of our kids' big emotions, then that's not going to help the situation get settled down. And so staying calm and modeling to our kids, first of all, that we can stay calm, that's really important. And then just recognizing, being present with our kids and letting them know it's okay. When we talk about the flipping the lid, when we know we flip the lid, the emotion is taking over. So it's a big response. So our rational thinking isn't there. And so that's not a time to problem solve with your child. And so that's a time to say, okay, I'm here with you, listen for understanding, empathize, and then use a strategy. So that's the best time to start. You want to use a strategy to get them calmed down. And once they're calmed down, that's when the lid goes back down, the prefrontal cortex connects, and they can think again. And so once that happens, then you can problem solve the situation. So first thing is we have to calm the emotion.
Then once it is all calm, and I know I'm a super planner, strategizer, I want to get it taken care of right away. And that's just my nature. So that's giving me pause, making me think. What are some of the strategies then that I can use to talk to my child about?
There's a lot of strategies. So first of all, when we are in that fight, flight, or freeze state, like, you just got burnt, right? And like, that was the example, or like a bear is chasing you. So it's kind of, I explain it to kids as like your brain has like hijacked you. And so we need to like be able to slow down our body even. So deep breathing is a really good strategy because we can actually slow down our heartbeat. So there's different types of breathing. There's all kinds, like 4 squared breathing. There's other types of breathing where you could add in like other physical movement. That's a really good one. There's other strategies that might be referred to as grounding. And that again is just like what it sounds like, is we're grounding. We're trying to bring ourselves back down into our body. Those would be things that are trying to pull ourselves out of that emotional brain. So you might be picking out find all the things in the room that have a certain color. You want to pull in the senses. So use a piece of hard candy and suck on it. And what do you taste? What do you feel in your mouth? What do you hear around you? What do you smell? What are some things you can touch around you? Also, fidgets are really good. So like I'm playing with one right now. This is just like a stretchy one. This is really easy. Play-Doh is really easy. They have these nice little tiny ones you can get now. So since we're like trying to be concerned about germs, this is something that could be good. using a type of visual. So this is just like a glitter bottle that we made these at school, and you could just watch the glitter. Also the same thing with like a goo timer or something like that. So just visually giving yourself something to look at. Another good thing is we want to try to pull in like happiness chemicals. So you can get like, you can pack a punch by going for a walk outside. So you get the sunshine, you get exercise, distractions help. You can journal, you can draw. Younger kids like to draw their feelings, even if they just scribble it out. Something you don't need anything for is just having somebody focus and unfocus their eyes. So maybe they look at something with a bright color or focus on it and then try to like, you know, make it cloudy. And so especially with younger kids, you can make it like a game, and then it really distracts them away. And by the time they're calm, they might even forget what they were even upset by. So
I love those strategies. It's funny because I'm glad we're recording this, because I felt like I should be writing down furiously, because every single one of those ideas is great. I love, you know, getting in touch with the senses and going outside and getting some of that vitamin D from the sun. Let's talk about COVID, because in addition to just kids being kids and flipping their lids, and they've experienced a lot in the last year. So that kind of is, you know, like mega big emotions. Help us deal with some of that.
Okay, so the thing about COVID is it is a big stressor, but it is also, it's a stressor that layers on top of all the other stressors going on in life. And so it's kind of like, I saw you doing this, and I kind of think of it as like layers in an onion. So it's almost like adding more layers to our onion. Is that we might have these little stressors, we might have bigger stressors already going on. So this is like this bigger stressor, and it's also going on over a period of time. And so that's why we might see our child struggling more with regulating their emotions or calming their anxiety. And so during this time, we know that this is hard. So talking to our kids about it, letting them talk about how they feel about it, normalizing it in the sense of that we're all going through it, and this is an abnormal kind of situation. At some point it will go away. And again, this is a temporary situation. So talking through some of those big feelings and even sharing with your child how you've, maybe some struggles that you've had, because you're their biggest role model. And so yeah, just having those conversations.
Great. Okay, so you were just talking about anxiety. What are some of the things that I should be looking for with anxiety? I know like one of my sons would just completely melt down. Well, that was very clear. I knew what was going on, but a lot of children pull everything inside. So what should we look for as parents when it comes to looking for signs of anxiety?
Okay, and that's a great question. So behavior is communication. And so paying attention to something different in your child. So what is a behavior that is just different, that is bigger than it used to be, or even like less than it used to be. So I like how you reference, like some kids might have a meltdown, their behaviors might get bigger, and we notice those, they grab our attention, but other kids might withdraw. And so if you're noticing that your child is not coming out of their room anymore, or they don't want to talk to other people, or they don't want to leave the house, or they just don't want to engage in different things, those are some signs to look for. And then when you notice any kinds of these differences in behaviors, then that's when you need to start having some conversations about what's going on.
Awesome. Okay, I want to go back. I loved the video at the beginning with the Coke bottle, the fizzy stuff, keeping the lid on or taking the lid off and letting it. Is that a good way? Is that a good analogy to use with our kids and when we talk to them about managing their big emotions?
Yeah, it's great because I have one here. I keep this, I'm in my office. I keep this in my office. I have used this as my fake Coke bottle. I've used this to teach kindergarten through middle school students. I even use this to reference sometimes to parents because it's like a physical thing. And when, even though this is fake, I can shake it and be like, what's gonna happen if I keep shaking this bottle? And even a kindergartner will say, or preschool can say, it's going to explode, right? And so then we refer back and say, like, that's what happens with our emotions when they get too big. When we don't release it, when we don't let the fizz calm, and we keep building and building the pressure, that means we're not taking care of our emotions. We're not maybe talking about something we're upset about. Maybe we don't know strategies to use. A lot of times I will tell kids, if they're using a strategy that's not the best idea, it might not be a really good choice. They might just not know the strategy. So it's also a matter of teaching them that there are strategies. So this is a great thing because kids, adults, we all get this. We all know what happens when we shake a Coke bottle. And so when they're like, oh, that's what happens, you know, they're kind of like, it pulls them in. And so it's really about grabbing their attention. This is a great representation to kind of like, let's learn how to manage those emotions so we don't explode all over other people, so to speak.
Which happens. I want to open it up to some of our parents. I've been kind of watching the chat kind of go through. Alejandra's been monitoring the chat for us all evening. Ale, what are some of the questions for from the parents?
Yes, thank you, Anne. I think April has answered a couple of them already regarding COVID-19, flipping the grid, emotions calming down. You talk about when you're anxious, you can have headaches, stomach aches. Those are symptoms. Okay, I have one from Cassandra. When is the appropriate time or situation to use these hands-on sensory tools? She wants to try it, but at what point is the distraction better than addressing the outburst?
I love that question. That's a great question. Okay, we have to teach our kids, okay? So with my elementary kids, I will tell them, I tell this to middle school kids too. It's not a tool if it's a toy, okay? If you are using it to the point of distracting yourself or others, it's not a tool anymore. So like this Play-Doh, I've used it with, you could use anything. This is a great example, right? Right here, I'll say, if you can play with this under the table, so I'm holding it up right now because you can't see under where my table is, but I will physically show them how to use it. And so this is the kind of thing, it might be calming, and I'm going to use it under the table because if I'm up here doing this and flinging it across the room, then it's definitely distracting people, and that's not a tool anymore. The other thing about our fidgets, or these kinds of strategies, is to try out different ones with your kids when they're not stressed out. See what they like. See, some people have, you might have a texture issue, or you don't like to touch a certain kind of thing, or maybe there's a certain kind of thing you do like to touch. So it just depends. I would say try different things. Find out what your kid likes and observe it at home. This is a perfect time because we have so many students virtual learning. But if your student is going to school, you can do the same thing. It's really important to practice our strategies anyway when we're not stressed. I always tell kids, you practice this when you're not stressed, because then when you do have a big emotion, then you might think about doing it. All right, because again, when we're having a big emotion, we flipped our lid and we don't always rational think. And so it's about coaching our kids and helping them when they have the big emotions also remember, oh, okay, what's your strategy? What are we going to use right now?
Great answer, April. Thank you. Now, I know you're a counselor, so you are on the at school. Are kids given calm down time in their classrooms? Do they have a specific time? What strategies do teachers, use with the students?
Again, that's a really great question. That is a question to ask your teachers, because your teachers at different schools at different levels are going to do different things. And so if you reach out to your teachers and say, hey, what are options for my kid? Like when they flip their lid, when they have a big emotion, when they're having a hard time regulating. And most teachers are going to be accommodating, and they might ask you, what does your kid need? So you can ask them what they already do, and then if they defer back, or I would say anyway, say, this works for my child. How can we make that happen at school? because we have so many options, and we're definitely flexible. And this is, especially during this time, we are all learning here, and we want to teach our kids these strategies because they're strategies for life.
Perfect. Thank you, April. And I know I am big on flipping my lid sometime. So I know families right now during the COVID time and this, year, I know a lot of people start getting apps, using their phones. Do you recommend any apps about, strategies to help us calm down that you can
Yes.
share with us?
There are many apps. Headspace is a good one. It has like meditation on it. There's one called SAM app. I'm not even sure if you can, oh, I guess you can't really see that. Maybe kind of. This one has different options and you can click on it. It'll tell you about anxiety. It'll also have strategies in there that you can practice. That one I would recommend probably more for like a middle school or high school student. For elementary, I've done this with middle school kids too. They love one it's called Settle Your Glitter. And it's really cool because when you open it up, there's actually a fish and it will breathe. So it gets bigger so you know to breathe in and out. And it's very visual. It asks them in the beginning, what feeling are you having? What level are you at? You do the breathing and you actually get to shake the phone and glitter falls. And so it's kind of cool because it's not really a glitter ball, but it looks like a glitter ball. And that one is really cool. Elementary kids love that one. It also checks in with you afterwards and asks you how you're feeling now and if you want to do more or if you're done. So those are two really good ones that I really like.
I'll be checking that out. Back to you, Anne.
All right, well, thank you. Great questions, parents. Thank you for your input. If you have any questions that we haven't addressed and you would like us to, pop them into the chat and we can always get back to you. We will follow up with an email. So, wow, I feel so energized and I feel like I've learned so much tonight. I hope that you all feel the same way. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your evening with us. April, Travis, thank you very much. You are amazing. And parent team, you too. On behalf of the parent team and the Round Rock Independent School District, we'd like to say thank you. Have a good night, everyone, and stay well.